I watched Brian's success over the years, and I thought it would be great to have him on a panel. Specifically, Brian specializes in faith-based productions, and he grew up with the son of a minister, correct? And he walked the walk. He was always someone that I was influenced by, and I just felt that bringing him here today would be a wonderful opportunity, not only to hear about his productions and what he's doing, but also to meet the people he makes the magic with. So let me start out. We have Brian Bird, first of all, writer, showrunner, executive producer. We have, where are we going? Brandon Clark down there. Trying to match the
We didn't go in our pictures here.
Who's the director, producer?
Here's me today, by the way.
Cress Williams, actor, producer, and Nathan Scoggins, who is also writer, director, producer.
I worked, Rich, with you on Step by Step, obviously. In fact, who remembers Step by Step? Anybody remember this show? So we had this character.
Step by step, ooh baby. Gonna get different step by step, not like this.
On Step by Step. After Sasha Mitchell left the show, we had to invent new breakout characters, and so we had this breakout character who was played by Jason Marsden, if anybody knows that name. And Rich was a writer on the show, and we just loved his name so much, we said, let's name the breakout character Rich Halke. And so we did. And so I have fond memories, and we had a lot of great times working together in the comedy room.
And so you made character payments every time they said my name.
Exactly, I did. Yeah, so that was part of the motivation too, little program payments that we got. But anyway, so as Rich said, and I think Nathan, your dad might have been a minister too, or family members.
Yep.
So I grew up in the church. I became a journalist first. I worked in newspaper and magazine work before I morphed into film and TV about 40 years ago, to be honest. I've been kicking around a long time. But I've always believed that storytelling is all faith-based. It's all faith-based. Every story we are pulled into, whether it's in the movies or TV shows, there's a redemption cycle that happens in every piece that we watch. And if any of you have studied the hero's journey, right, which is the pattern of storytelling that goes back 5,000 years, way before Jesus, right? So the epic tale of Gilgamesh, the epic poem of Gilgamesh from ancient Samaria. Gilgamesh is the hero in that poem, in that story. He dies and he's resurrected 2,000 years before Jesus ever shows up, right? So resurrections are in the culture. Think about all the movie analogs of this. The Matrix. What happens to Neo? Neo dies, but he's resurrected. What happens to E.T.? E.T. dies. E.T. comes back. Harry Potter dies. Harry Potter comes back. Right? So the hero's journey, if you study it, one of the stages, the 12 stages of the hero's journey, which are the common stages of every hero's journey going back 5,000 years in human history. One of the stages that was identified by the foremost expert in all the great storytelling and the myth, the monomyth, it's called, which is all the common tropes from storytelling going back to the cave paintings, right? Neanderthals telling their kids stories in the caves. One of the stages is called the resurrection. That's not just a Jesus thing. That's a human thing. We all need a resurrection in our life. We all need, and that's why most movies have, at the end of Act 2, there's a death of the old man. There's a death of, at the sort of the supreme ordeal, the dark night of the soul, right? That happens at the end of Act 2 of every story is always followed by the rebirth of that man, the new man, right? This is not just a Christian trope. This is not just a Christian thing. It's in the water, guys. It's in our DNA. We hunger for redemption in all of our stories. So I say, Rich, all stories are faith-based stories.
Great point. Good point.
So he's always been working in the faith world.
They just said, we'll hold the microphones this way it's clearer. So they just take it off the stands,
There we go.
and that way everybody it'll be easier for the people up there. Okay, great. Now, how did you connect with these gentlemen?
So our mutual friend, Michael Warren, Rich, who hired us, right, way back in the 1990s.
Hired me, yeah.
Yeah, step by step. He told me, when he hired me, and John, my writing partner at the time, John Wyrick, to be on a show prior to Step by Step called The Family Man, he said, we're opening a door for you guys. We believe in you. We like your samples, your writing samples. We're opening a door for you, but if your talent doesn't show up, it doesn't matter. We can't keep you there if your talent doesn't show up. We'll open a door, your talent has to show up, keep the door open. But he also said, somebody opened a door for me when I was starting. And that was Gary Marshall. Who knows the name Gary Marshall, right? A legend in the business. Now deceased, but a legend of comedy. And Gary Marshall did that for Michael Warren. Michael Warren said, I'm leaving a door open for you. I'm paying it forward because Gary said you got to do this for somebody else. And my whole career, I've been trying to do that. And I believe in keeping doors open for people. I've been a mentor my whole career. There's a few of these guys on this stage that are way more talented than me. And they're going to have huge careers in this business. But I'm opening a door for them. Partially it's selfish because I know they'll want to keep me aboard somehow if they shoot past me. But there are at least a dozen people working in the business at high levels that I open a door for, and I just believe in it. It's part of who I am. It's part of my mission statement. Because Michael told me to. He said, you got to do this. So I've been trying to do that my whole life. And with Brandon's a gifted director and producer. We've made 5 movies together. We're currently working on the John Wooden movie together, the biopic of the GOAT of all time, the greatest coach of all time, John Wooden of UCLA, doing a biopic because nobody's ever done it, and we got the rights to do it, so we're working on it together. For Nathan and Cress, we're working together. I think for the first time, we've had friendships and have brushed past each other at events like this before. But we're getting ready to take out into the market a pitch on an incredible original pilot that Nathan has written and that Cress and Nathan worked on together. And it's called Crucible. And remember those fires the last few months, right? That Apocalypse LA, 37% of the firefighters are federal prisoners. They're convicts. Who knows this? Has anybody ever heard this? 37% of the firefighters putting those fires out are prisoners, right? The show revolves around those convicts and what happens to them in their world, and they're all seeking redemption. It's a grittier show than just a faith-based show, right? But at the core of it is redemption, people seeking redemption. So, hope that answers your question. So I believe in mentorship. That's why I wanted these guys to come join me, because I'm the old guy. They're the they're the guys with all the young voices and a lot of energy to make stuff happen.
Okay, and let me find out, we'll start down here. Brandon, what got you started? And specifically, what brought you toward the faith-based stuff?
Well, I mean, I've been around the church all my life, but I come from the secular end of the industry, and I've never treated what I did differently, whether it's a faith movie or not. Faith is just part of the story process, like Brian was saying. But I grew up around the industry all my life. My great-granddad helped start the Stunt Association with Humphrey Bogart and John Wayne, and my grandfather produced a lot of John Wayne's movies, The Goonies. Obviously, there's a new one coming. It's a little bit of an issue with the family estate right now. And then go Spielberg, but we'll see. And then my father was a cinematographer. I kind of recently brought him out of retirement on a few of our movies. But I was one of those kids that was sick and twisted, kind of made everybody come over in my backyard and make movies with me when I was 9 years old. I think cinema has this unspoken relationship to us, and it just grabbed me right away. And I was growing up young acting, but I decided, hey, this is a little weird, I want to play sports, it just wasn't for me at the time. These other people that are worshiping this, I don't understand. This is just what we do. So I had a different perspective, and came back to it much later. And to contest to what he was saying, I had a lot of success young, but I had to step away from it. There's a dark portion of the industry that's pretty tough, and a lot of powerful people. And so in that rise, I made a decision that I needed to, and for my own safety, and not get into the details, but I'm back. And that's how God resurrects the stories. Amen. And Brian is one of those people who championed me to get back in the chair, and I really do appreciate that. You are a true testament to what he's saying, and I like hearing and meeting people like I just did today that he's met at other conferences or things like this, because it does pay off. So I mean, that's kind of how I started my career, and then I just couldn't do anything else. It was more of a calling and destiny.
Yeah. Wow, that's wonderful. Fantastic. Cress, how about you? What got you into it?
I've never known myself not to want to act. Just when I was a kid, it was all I knew I wanted to do was entertain. Product of a single parent, so I usually say that television raised me, because I was in front of it all the time, and I don't know, I just knew that not just it was something I wanted to do, but something I was supposed to do, called to do, and so I pursued it, and fortunately got really acclimated to skill and the idea of respecting it as a craft, and not just the end result. As I got older and started really thinking about legacy and the stories I want to tell, I've been on a lot of different sets, told a lot of different stories, and have started to get to a point of like, well, there's specific stories I want to tell, and what are the things that I still watch a lot of TV to this day. I'm a big consumer, so what are the things that attract me? What are the things that repel me? Why do they attract me? Why do they repel me? And the biggest thing, I don't necessarily call it faith-based, to be perfectly honest, but there's my motto is kind of like, leave it better than you found it. And so I'm always intrigued by, amen, I'm always intrigued by, I don't know, the stories of human beings striving, because, you know, this life is tough. Life be life, and it just doesn't stop, as I say a lot. And so, you know, I'm interested in flawed, complex characters who are striving for the light. It's the best general way to put it. And not necessarily that they get there. Sometimes, you know, we know life is often 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward. But that strive and that desire to keep moving forward and trying to get there, that's the journey that I'm interested in. And so the more that I watch and experience, the more that, like, I don't know, I'm just interested in those types of stories, not necessarily the stories of people wallowing and giving up and kind of sitting in the darkness, but the stories of people striving for the light. And again, the older I got focusing in on more on those types of stories, and that's what I want to do with what I've been given. I'm excited about the behavior journey, the detective journey of figuring out people and what makes them tick and why they do what they do. That just excites me. So
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you. And now, Nathan, how about you? What got you into it? What drew you to this type of stuff?
I didn't know this, but in Texas, film is a 2-syllable word. Cress and I made a movie together a couple of years ago. I wrote, produced, and directed. He starred. And we were at the premiere in Amarillo, and we watched this movie, and somebody at the end is, well, I have a question. I'd like to talk to you about your faith-based film. And I went, that's a 2-syllable. I didn't know that you could do that. You could just make up new syllables. But it's interesting because Cress and I made this movie together that is very much about exploring faith through probably an uncommon lens. And it's the story of a pastor whose wife is killed in a home break-in that goes wrong, and 5 years later the convict gets out of prison, comes back to the small town, essentially to try to seek forgiveness for what he did, because Cress's character from the pulpit at the funeral makes the uncommon statement of choosing to forgive the man. And Kellen Lutz, who plays the convict, comes back 5 years later essentially to understand what happened. And it's sort of exploring the relationship between these two men, as well as the son character. And then Anne Heche played a police detective who was investigating a similar murder. And it was interesting because when this gentleman in the audience kind of phrases a faith-based film, I was like, well, I don't think of it as a faith-based film. I think it's a movie about faith. But in that way, Flannery O'Connor's stuff was about faith. The Apostle by Robert Duvall is a movie about faith. But Shawshank is a movie about faith. And so I think, I'm the proud son of a pastor. Our ministry has always been something that's happened in my life. But my mom, who was a pastor's wife, would play piano for my dad when he was pastoring. She was playing. And so I've always had ministry and artistry at the same, in both hands. And so What Remains, I think, was the latest experience of the opportunity to explore both ministry and artistry at the same time. Bob Dylan refers to some songs as healing music, and the idea that some music actually can heal, and I think there's a ministry that happens in that. And certainly, and Brandon knows this, on set, you're not there to preach, you're not there to, you're there to get the shots and hope to get out on time and get all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think we had an extraordinary, get out without overtime. But we
save your teeth. That's right.
But we had an extraordinary experience on What Remains, where a movie that was about faith became, for an awful lot of people, a healing experience. There were a lot of spiritual experiences that happened on the set. Yeah. And I think that's because for me, like, artistry and ministry have always kind of tied together. Pastor Erwin McManus says that creativity is a natural result of spirituality. And to be a creative person means that you are a spiritual person. Bono talks about how when you're a singer, you've got to have faith. Brian, you said it so nicely, but Bono had this idea that you've got to have faith that the next note is going to be there when you're writing music. And so a creative act is inherently a spiritual act. And so for me, I never felt like it was strange or weird to explore notions of faith. I think the question is, what aspect of your faith are you exploring? And I think a lot of people explore the comfort food of faith, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've always kind of looked at myself more as the prophet Jeremiah, who turns up the ground of people's hearts. And that means that, What Remains is not a movie for everybody, but the people for whom it is, it definitely is. A friend of mine who was Jewish, I sent it to him for notes, and we were doing a pass, and he wrote me back and just said, when I started watching this movie, I did not think this was a movie for me. And he said, and then I got to the end of the movie, and I realized this is exactly a movie for me. And I thought that was a really sort of very kind compliment, because for me, some of the greatest artists, Bob Dylan deals with faith, Bono deals with faith. Good grief, how many, Whitney Houston had to grapple with faith, right? Yeah. So I think that there's this bifurcation sometimes we think, because we put it to a genre, when the reality is that we are a whole people, and all of us have these questions. And I've always seen, my storytelling as an exploration of just questions that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good stuff.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Does anyone have any questions we want to start with? Okay, question right up front.
How do you balance your Christianity and your faith with everything going on in the world today and wokeness and all of that kind of stuff? I'm just really curious about that.
Sorry if that's too deep.
Oh, that's easy.
No?
Right loaded right there.
Sorry.
Well, so I have a Gary Marshall story because I met Gary and had a chance to talk with him about 2 weeks before he passed. And it's Gary Marshall. He's like a comedy icon. Like, you know, I mean, he's telling stories that, you know, in this hour and a half, it was just so hilarious. And so you're sitting there and there's like 15 of us kind of sitting like this, and I get to ask Gary, and I was like, oh, am I going to ask Gary Marshall what he thinks is funny? Like, that's a stupid question to ask, or whatever. So I raised my hand and asked Gary a question. I said, Mr. Marshall, you know, show a sign of respect. You're known for being a family man. What's it like trying to integrate your family into your work? Because he was famous for hiring family and all this kind of stuff. He said, oh, you gotta hire your family because your family is your life. And your life is your art, and your art is your work. Like, you don't separate it. I hired my sister Penny because my mother called and said, no one's gonna marry her, so give her a job. and so he had this whole thing, but he just said, you don't integrate it, you try to address it all. And so afterwards, I got to go up on stage and just chat with him, and he looked at me and said, Nathan, I remember your name. I'm 81, but I'm not dead. And I was very excited about that. And he shook my, I said, Mr. Marshall, I just want to shake your hand. He took my hand and drew me in close, and he said, it's such an important question. Balance in art and family. No one in town thinks of that, but that's the most important thing. Don't forget to ask that question. And I've never forgotten that. And I think that the question that you're asking, how do we balance? I think, you know, on my first movie release of these, I got to work with Robert Loggia, the late Robert Loggia, and this Oscar nominee, and my daughters came to set. And a lot of times people treat set like summer camp. What happens on set stays on set. And I'm just like, I'm a family man, like everyone knows that I'm married, and it's not because I'm trying to like flash a ring, it's just, I just live an integrated life. And so one of my favorite moments from the set was my little 3-year-old daughter running up to Mr. Loggia and him just picking her up and bouncing her on his knee while we were getting ready to shoot a thing, or Bob Gunton telling me, get out of the directorship, put your daughter in there, let's see what happens when she directs something. Like, I think there's a way to live a whole life, and if we're talking about spirituality, wholeness is holiness. And so, you know, I'm a very happily married man. The smartest thing I ever did was making my wife the smartest thing I ever did. And I've got these kids, and I just try to integrate my life all the time, because I think it's a terrible thing when if someone were to look at Brian Bird and go, oh, he's one way on the set, and another way at church, another way with his family. It's like, we are, all of us, who we are. And, you know, the wokeness thing, I don't know how to deal with that, but I do know that the more integrated we live off set in our lives, the more integrated we are on set, and the more that maybe things become even uncommon or unspoken, they just become sort of like natural fruit. And so I think for me, I'm always trying to live an integrated life. My family is my life.
I don't, the phrase wokeness, I don't know what that means, so I made it be perfect. I know the origin of woke, which I don't know if a lot of people know, but it was really more of a kind of an internal African-American term. That it's been lost over the years. This is a side note, but just so you know, the original woke term was really back in the day when, you know, it was pretty dangerous to be black, and not that it's not dangerous now, but it was especially in the South, and so it was kind of a code word that another black person would tell another black person, like, you know, if you go through here, stay woke. Like, watch out, be aware. That's what it originated. So when people say wokeness, I don't get, because it's like almost like taking a word and making a new definition.
Fair.
But I will say, kind of echoing what you have to say, like when I was a kid and I first decided I wanted to be an actor, first I was baptized at 7, and being an only child, I have a very healthy mind palace world, and so I always felt like this whole thing was a God calling. That it wasn't just like, well, I want to be famous. It was like, no, this is what God has made me to do. This is what I'm built this way, and so I'm supposed to do this. And so it starts there, and I think now, even more as an adult, I've evolved, and the reality is that God is first. And and our relationship is first. That colors everything. And so, you know, if we could just really, if we had that wonderful faith that, you know, we wouldn't make a turn without insight from God. That's really what I'm striving to get to. But that filters through everything. It filters through making decisions, yay or nay. It filters through how to deal with people, how to deal with the day. It filters through learning lessons and, okay, God, that wasn't a great experience. What can I learn from that? So it's really, it's not even just like a balance. It's like, that's everything. And then everything else gets like rained on from that. For me,
like a filter.
Yeah, it's the starting place.
That is so good, Cress. I gotta say, look, maybe because I'm one of the older people in the room, hopefully, well, I know I'm in the last half of my life, maybe in the last quarter. I hope not.
You keep saying that, and you said you're never going to
I
stop
know.
writing.
I'm just trying to go out. I'm leaving it all on the field, right? I don't want to do that. But what I do know, because I've had a lot of experiences in our business and prior to that, life is the great equalizer for every one of us. No matter what you believe, where you come from, what your background is, who you look to, who you worship, life is a great equalizer. Last time I checked, the mortality rate is 100%. Right?
Yeah.
Other times undefeated.
Yes, unless we're
Unless you're
Elon
the king of
Musk
kings.
injecting ourselves with baby protoplasm. But what I'm going to say is we're all going to end up in a box, guys.
Yeah.
Life beats us up. Life is going to come hard at all of us. No matter what color we are, what our class is, where we live, it's going to come hard at us, right? How do you survive without something to hang on to?
Oh, yeah.
How do you survive without something outside of yourself? Some greater mission, some greater purpose. Because we all need, faith. Is it a crutch? Absolutely, because we're all handicapped. We're all crippled by life, right? So my attitude is, dude, I need it. Like, I need the faith that I hold on to.
Yeah.
And I want to extend that to everybody. So the work that I do is my mission, right? My family is my mission. It's all, as you guys are saying, it's all integrated.
Yeah.
It's all part of the same thing. And I guarantee you, so is your life. It's integrated. It should be, right? You need it to be. So, and what we do, it's not faith-based. We're telling stories that feed people. Story is food. We all have these phones. We're watching content 24/7, 365, right? On our phones. We have information coming at us all the time. And stories are coming at us all the time because we eat it. And it's soul food. Now, we can eat junk food. We can eat razor blades and broken glass. And what does that do? It tears you up inside. So the best distinguisher for me about the kind of stories I want to tell is it dripping with cynicism, or is it filled with hope and aspiration? And I want to give hope to people. I don't want them to end up like watch one of my things and go, man, I need a shower after that.
Yeah.
Right? Or I don't feel very good. Like, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with the world? Story fixes it. Good story fixes that, and I stand by my comment. All story is faith-based in one way or another.
No closeness, for me personally, than being with the King is to be creative and actively working with what we do. There is not a set. Now, to the other point of that, and it's a great thing to bring up, I just believe love is the strongest of all things. It shows up everywhere. It wins at all times. It's actually the most storytelling that we always want to hear and have. It's usually what leads us and holds us to the bearing strongest redemption of all stories. And my crew is my family, so when I see them on day one, it's like the most greatest gift that I have is to see them. And I believe just making movies is an act of worship. And I feel like that every day we show up. Brian's seen some stuff in the trenches, but I will say it takes faith to just even get there and do it. And you don't know the answers. None of us do. Like as creators, we don't know the answers. He does. But you're hanging out with him even closer to him and tighter with him in every breath and every moment because you're searching for a soulness in what you're trying to tell and do, and it just shows up. I've ripped scenes right out of the page in a moment and tell everybody to leave the room because I know God's about to speak real quick, and I just need it personally for myself so that I can lead the right way for my crew. Otherwise, I don't even take a step. And we've had many moments like that, or I've had my actresses, I demand them to be in the car on the way to set with me so that I can pray for them on the way because I saw how yesterday was. Or that we just lead worship and tell me what's going on in your life, and the whole day changes from that. And I think that's a result of how we live our lives. I feel like movie making taught me how to respond to everybody in a different way. My movies aren't about me. We have the biggest gift in the world. We get to learn how to talk in universal language to all people, to everybody, to have everyone there. I truly believe as an artist, appealing to the masses is actually a true artist. Because you take away the self from it and you make it all about how do I speak to everybody in this? Will they understand this? Will they know what I'm about to go do in this scene or this situation or this moment? Is it worth this from the start? And I think that revolves out in life and how we treat everybody too. My crews, I always tell them, I'm the most selfish person on the planet when I get there. I'm the director. You're all here for my vision. It's the most selfish thing there is. But my grandfather used to say, hey, the director is the entry-level position. We're all here to hold his hand. And I've never let that go. And I think that's how God looks at every single one of us. They're all there holding me up while I'm doing everything I can to get the next job to hold them up. And that's a beauty. That's relationship. That's how we love one another, and that's where Christ shows up. And I think that's where the balance is.
Before you, I just want to add this. I remember we had this conversation a little while ago, and what we do is hard. You know what I mean? It's not. It's no disrespect, but people who don't do it, I call them muggles. but muggles make the world go round. So I don't like. It's not a lesser thing, but it's a different. A lot of times we're free falling. You know, there's no guarantee, and it's tough. And I remember one day walking and talking to God and going in one of those real tough moments of going like, why couldn't I just been a muggle? Could you just made me a muggle where I just go to a job Monday through Friday? I know and I'm just waiting for my pension and yada yada yada. But then I really thought about it. I was like, no, because faith is a muscle, right? And faith mixed in with what we do is like it's like a supersized workout. And so it's like it's just like doing this with faith it helps you create faith on steroids. And when I thought about it, and I remember we talked the next day after I came back to the other side, and I was like, no, I would only do this because I want those supersized faith muscles. And so I don't know how you do it. Like I think you had said, I don't know how you do it without it. Like I don't know how you stay in it without faith. Like I know people who aren't of faith who were super talented and things didn't quite click for them, and they bounced. They went into other things, and I get it because I mean, even with faith, at times I want to just bounce. So yeah, I mean, you gotta have it.
I think. And I get nervous because sometimes we get really irritated about how we talk about this stuff. And there's a basicness to it. But I do think that one of the things we have to pay attention to the fact is art is confession. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a spiritual action to when I write a story a certain way. Right? When I direct and I'm framing a shot a certain way, I'm revealing something about myself and about how I see the world. So whether it's conscious or unconscious, I'm confessing something. There were things in Black Lightning that you did where it's like you're just revealing, right, who you are. And I think maybe it was Roberta Flack who said that a soul singer is someone who reveals rather than conceals. Mm. And so I think that part of what we do as creatives, the best of us hopefully, is we reveal, we confess. And there's confession on the set, there's confession in the writing, there's confession, in the theater that we all have to pay attention to. Yeah. Now I think what's interesting, kind of bridging it to like a more like, what does this mean in the actual nuts and bolts of it? It's really interesting that we're in a time where mainstream filmmaking and faith-based storytelling are kind of having a mutual moment. And so there's suddenly this space where people are interested in stories about faith, That's great, that's delightful, that's great, it's helpful. But then, what do I confess about faith? And I think that one of the challenges is that if we're going to tell stories about faith, what do we do about the hard days? Like, I love and deeply appreciate my friends who make movies like God's Not Dead and things like that, but okay, great, I know that, but it's still hard. Because God bless people who make movies about prayer. It's like, okay, what happens when your prayers don't seem to work? Or when the room is silent? What happens, 14 years ago, my wife and I experienced a miscarriage. What happens when a baby is not somewhere that a baby is supposed to be? And God is quiet. And I think that's part of the challenge for us, maybe as people who are believers, but who take our faith seriously, is, okay, we're going to talk about this, and try to talk about it in a mainstream way. Okay, are we really going to go there? Or are we going to settle for, easy platitudes, rather than the stuff that we've all had to deal with in our lives that are struggling? And can we bring that to our art in a way where an audience goes, oh, thank God someone said it? Or is the audience going to go, no, I really prefer the simple stuff of faith? And there's nothing wrong with that, but part of the challenge is, okay, I'm going to confess that it's hard. One of the things I love about Cress's performance in What Remains is that he is, we premiered at the Austin Film Festival, and one of the local Austin writers wrote very kindly about our movie and said, this is a movie about people who think they know what they're doing, but they have no idea whether it's right. And that's, I think, how I live a lot of my life as a believer. Certainly how we are on set, right? Is this the right shot? I hope so. But I think that, can the story support a level of questions that maybe mainstream faith-based audiences sometimes don't want to hear because they just want to hear.
Well, the Bible's full of existential questions.
For sure.
The whole thing, right?
But I think the more that we deal with that in our own life, I think the more, I was very kind of when I've written, many movies or whatever, people go, oh, you write movies about faith that I can relate to. I think it's because, again, that integration means that I don't have the answers, and we're all trying to figure it out. And when I write a movie or direct a film and about the uncertainty, someone goes, oh, thank God, I can relate to that.
I think it's,
you can't change it in 2 hours either.
Right.
That's your job.
Around the human story, and to be perfectly honest, and it doesn't mean compromising anything that we believe, but I think that the moment in our world, the moment you put faith-based on something, you've just now lost a lot of audience.
100%.
It's the equivalent to, I had a pastor do this whole sermon on, when she's from Canada. It was during the election cycle. She's from Canada, and she was talking about, so she was like, she could kind of be distanced, and she was talking about a time when in Canada there was an election going on, and somebody who was a friend of hers said, hey, can I put my candidate's sign on your lawn? She's like, yeah, sure. And they put it on the lawn, and she immediately noticed her neighbors treating her differently. People who used to talk to her didn't talk to her. And it really, I think a lot of times when we put those monikers, it's like the equivalent of a bumper sticker. It's the equivalent of a label, of a sign that will now keep 50% of the people from even wanting to watch your material, or if that wasn't on there, they could get it and be fed. Like, I love reading scripts. I think Shawshank's one of them. I felt like What Remains was one of them. I feel like Crucible is one of them. But this idea of reading scripts that, as a believer, I'm like, ooh, it's like, yeah, I'm feeling it. But also I realize that someone who's not a believer is going to be fed and they don't know it. And that's that place, that sweet spot for me. It's like, not everything has to be that, but for me, like, those are the stories that, where it's like, believers are getting fed and they know they're getting fed, non-believers are also getting fed and they don't know it. That is like, that's where I want to live in.
You even have to look at that, but what about the younger generation? How do we spike them right away? How do we want to be there? In the first act, we're like, it's the Notebook. We have to relive that. The third act becomes our Green Book, and then the second act becomes our Green Book, and the third act becomes our Hoosiers Rudy. But we get to that phase, but it's the same idea of not putting the faith out there as the label and stuff. Because every movie you have to have that's going to be a masking to that. There's some kind of expectation coming with it.
Right.
Well, and don't we want to tell stories that are authentic?
Right. Exactly.
Like, no matter what you do, don't you want your characters to be real, living, three-dimensional human beings who feel real, who we can relate to? Well, that's what our goal is when we're telling a John Wooden story or a story about convicts who fight fires. we're trying to tell stories that are authentic.
Yeah.
Because if you can relate to that character, you're going to want to go on the ride with them.
Yeah, faith is
On the
organic.
journey, wherever it goes.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone on the panel. First of all,
Want
what
me to-
calls the heart?
We going this way?
Yeah.
Okay. We're working on a ton of stuff. Mainly right now, our big major focus is wood. We're in heavy negotiations, and it's those are one of those projects where it takes a long time. So it doesn't look, it looks glamorous now in the moment of it, but that's almost 7 years in the making of chasing rights. And by the way, if anyone's chasing real life rights, it takes a long time. The bigger the IP, the more difficult it can be. And just have champions by your side, those that are willing to be in the trenches with you, because we're making other movies at the same time, but you have to keep that engine going. So that's our biggest focus, and then we have our smaller TV movies and things like that at TrueBrand Entertainment, because he is my business partner and we work a lot, so I keep relating over to him. But yeah, we have a bunch of stuff, and then obviously TV things and some other projects.
So your TV stuff, just say what it is.
I'm personally trying to work on a show that I love a lot, and I may just go and do it for Angel Studios right now for a torch that I learned from him that he did with Home to Harmony. It's called the Valley Isle. It's in Maui, technically. It's the old untold MMA culture of Ohanas, and luckily Dana White gave a lot of support, and Max Holloway and some other guys. And I think when we're in our vulnerability, it exposes the most. As an athlete, I experienced that so much too. And so it was a great way to add faith organically to things so the characters can be really who they are. And how subcultures can become massive cultures. They just don't know it yet. So
Think Karate Kid with MMA.
yeah, exactly.
Right, okay. And Brian?
For my TV show called When Calls the Heart, which is the top rated cable show right now. In 2025, it's the top rated scripted show. And when we're on Sunday nights, we're in the top 20 of all shows, of all networks. It became a huge hit. We're prepping season 13 of that show. It's a show that Michael Landon Jr. and I created, and we never thought it was going to blow up. But the reason it blew up is because audiences are starved to death for what we're doing. And it very much vibes with what Michael's father did with Little House on the Prairie, Highway to Heaven. I was involved in Touched by an Angel after Step by Step. I went to Touched by an Angel. So the show took off because people are starved to death for something that doesn't make them feel bad. And this actually makes them feel good. They tell us all the time, we wish we could live in Hope Valley. Like, how do we do that? We want to go there. And I said, you don't really want to do it. It's 1920. It's a little town. People only took a bath once a week. You wouldn't want to go there. But it's become a huge hit. And so that, the street cred I got from creating that show and being the showrunner on that show has led to other opportunities. The movies that we have made, Little Women's Christmas, this last Christmas time, was I think the second highest rated Christmas film at Great American Family Channel.
But we did win Best TV Family Movie of the Year.
Yes, we did. The Movieguide Award. So When Calls the Heart has given me street cred that I never knew I could get. I get to work with all these guys, and we get to go like in an impossible business, make the impossible happen. That's right.
Fantastic.
And you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? It's an impossible business. What you have to do is there's no such thing as giving up. Failure is not an option. When you say yes to something good, you don't give up, right? And what you have to do is chip away at the impossibility of it a little bit every day until you're on a film set and somebody like Brandon or Nathan is calling out action. Wow. And you go, how did I get here? They're all like that, guys. They're all like that. John Wooden will be like that. It's a leap of faith for you to take on any story. Failure is not an option. Never give up.
Fantastic. And real quick, are you two working on?
Yeah, I mean, I literally just got back last week from upstate New York doing a cute kids Christmas movie called Reimagined with a lot of people. You'll see that at some point. But Nathan and I, we started a company like, wow, I don't know, a handful of years ago. Year ago?
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that. We just kind of organically, after working on What Remains, started developing things. And it was you that, like, you at one point looked around and said, we have 5 things. I'm like, wait, what? And I started counting them. Oh yeah, we have 5 ideas. So, so we've been developing. Crucible is one of them. A kind of old school private detective show is another. Story about a group of men trying to become men in Los Angeles is another. And I think the through lines are always, again, just striving for the light. And we kind of row in the same direction, so it's become an amazing, like, working relationship, friendship. Yeah, I'm very excited about the future.
Fantastic. And then,
So I sold, in an impossible time, I was very fortunate. I sold a couple of pitches last year, contained thrillers. I'm working on with a great producer on one, a studio called STX on another, and then STX they've brought me in on a couple of other projects, so I'm very grateful to have some great studio collaborators. And then Crucible, and those are the things that are, when you're a writer, you're essentially a small business, and we keep small businesses in businesses inventory. And so my agent now is kind of famous for calling me and saying, "Do you have a da-da-da-da-da?" And I go, "Yeah, hang on." And I reach into a drawer, "Yeah, I have a da-da-da-da-da." And so there's like 9 things that are out there right now, but there are like 5 that are cooking very, very strongly on the stove, so to speak. And so I'm trying to tend to all of those. So.
fantastic.
Well, and for all you writers out there, it's a very special gift you have, right? You are made in the image of the author of the entire universe. Think about that, right?
Thank everyone. We very appreciate it. And thank you.
All right, I'm right here. I just need y'all to wave at me. There we go.
What's up? Hey.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
I think overall, like, being a Black actor and being visible, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to play a wide variety of characters. And I didn't set out that way. I mean, a lot of times when you just start out, you're just taking whatever comes your way, right? And I guess it's a testament to God that I've been blessed that I've played more good guys than bad guys in my life. And, the stereotype a lot of times is, us having guns in our hands and being bad guys. And so I've just been really blessed that the diversity, but I think, characters like Black Lightning, first and foremost, I'm really proud of. They're putting that out there and knowing that that's forever. That, it's going to be on the internet, it's going to be on, DVDs, everything, that's forever, and hopefully can attribute to we as people, we as Black people are just as diverse, just as colorful, good and bad, than any other race there is. And so I hope that my characters do that they help create that diversity and the coloring of who we are as people.